We often build walls to keep people away from our loved ones or from precious resources. Walls are a simple design. They are a physical barrier to keep others out, be it humans, animals, or something else. But what if there was a wall, a castle, built to keep something inside? Then we would call it a prison, right? But if there are no prisoners, if this castle was built centuries ago to keep something far more sinister contained. Welcome to the portal, where myths, nightmares, and mysteries are just one step away. My name is Epoch, and I will be your guide. To preserve the light, we must first face the dark. The castle that makes no sense. If you were to build a castle in the 13th century, you would follow a specific set of rules. You would build it near a water source. You would build it on a strategic trade route. And you would build its defenses, its high walls and battlements, to face outward, to protect against invading armies. But if you travel north of Prague to the jagged forests of the Czech Republic, you will find a structure that breaks every one of those rules. Houska Castle. It has no kitchen. It has no water source. It was built miles away from any trade route, in a location that had no strategic value to any king. But the most unsettling detail is the architecture itself. The windows you see from the outside, they are fakes. Behind the glass is solid stone. And the fortifications, the thick walls and defensive towers, they are built facing inward. Houska Castle was not built to defend a kingdom. It was built as a lid, a stone seal placed over a hole in the earth that the locals called the gateway to hell. If you have watched this far, remember to subscribe, like, and comment what would you like to see next. The Bottomless Pit and the Prisoner. The lore begins before the stone was even laid. Long before King Ottokar II ordered the castle's construction, the locals spoke of a bottomless pit on that limestone cliff. They claimed that at night, things crawled out of the darkness, half-human, half-animal hybrids, winged creatures that moved with a wrongness that defied nature. The villagers avoided the area, fearing that to even look into the pit was to lose one's soul. When the construction of the castle began, the king offered a pardon to any prisoner facing the gallows on one condition. They had to agree to be lowered into the pit on a rope and tell the guards what they saw at the bottom. The story goes that one young man, strong and healthy, accepted the offer. They lowered him into the blackness. For the first few moments, there was silence. Then, the screaming started. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated terror. When the guards frantically pulled him back up, they didn't find the young man they had sent down. His hair had turned bone white. His face was etched with deep wrinkles. He had aged decades in a matter of seconds. He died 2 days later in a state of total insanity. He never spoke a word about what he saw in the depths, but the king ordered the pit sealed immediately. The Chapel of Seals. To ensure the darkness stayed buried, the architects built the castle chapel directly over the hole. But this is no ordinary place of worship. The walls are covered in some of the strangest, most disturbing murals in Europe. You will find images of a centaur-like creature, a woman from the waist up, and a horse from the waist down using a bow and arrow. In medieval Christian art, centaurs were seen as symbols of the demonic. Even more chilling, under the layers of fresco, are paintings of beings that look like mimics, figures that look human but move in ways that suggest a different anatomy. Psychics and paranormal investigators who visit the chapel today report a consistent sensation. They don't feel haunted, they feel pressed, as if the very weight of the building is fighting to hold back a massive pressure from beneath the floorboards. There are reports of thumping sounds coming from under the altar, a rhythmic, heavy beating like a giant heart or a fist hitting stone.
The Nazi occult and the search for the pit. During World War II, the mystery of Houska Castle took a darker, more modern turn. The Nazi SS, led by Heinrich Himmler, took control of the castle. Himmler was obsessed with the occult. He believed that ancient power spots across Europe held the key to supernatural weapons. While the official record says the Nazis used Houska as a library archive, the reality was much sinister. Locals reported seeing strange lights and hearing industrial sounds coming from the chapel deep into the night. It is rumored that the SS attempted to find the bottomless pit that had been sealed centuries before. They were looking for the source of the entities. When the war ended and the Nazis fled, they didn't just leave. They destroyed their research. But when the castle was later renovated, workers found the remains of 3 Nazi soldiers in the courtyard. They hadn't been killed in battle. They had been executed, as if they had seen something that could not be allowed to leave the castle walls. What did they find when they peeled back the stone seal? We may never know. But after the Nazi occupation, the reports of hauntings grew tenfold. The entities, the monk and the horse. Houska Castle is home to several distinct and terrifying, recurring apparitions. The most famous is the Black Monk. He is described as a tall figure in a heavy, dark hood. He has no face. He is often seen standing near the chapel or wandering the hallways holding a whip. Witnesses say that when he appears, the temperature drops so low that their breath freezes in the air. He doesn't just scare people. He seems to be patrolling, as if he is a guard still on duty, watching the seal. Then there is the headless horse, a massive, spectral animal that gallops through the courtyard, its neck a jagged, bloody stump. But the most disturbing reports are of the crawlers. Visitors have seen small, pale, monkey-like creatures that skitter across the ceilings and hide in the shadows of the fake windows. These match the descriptions of the hybrids from the original 1300s legends. It seems that despite the stone and the chapel and the prayers, some things still manage to slip through the cracks.
The lid must hold. Houska Castle stands today as a monument to a fear we no longer understand. In our modern world, we laugh at stories of hellholes and demons. But why would a king, a man of immense power, waste his resources building a useless castle in the middle of nowhere? Why did the Nazis, the most cold-blooded military force in history, spend years researching its basement? Maybe because they knew. They knew that the light we live in is thin, and that beneath us, in the dark, there are places where the floor is not as solid as it seems. If you ever visit Houska Castle, do not be fooled by the beautiful forest or the quiet air. Listen to the silence in the chapel, and remember, the walls are facing inward for a reason. We have many more gateways to open, but tonight perhaps give a little prayer. Pray that the seal holds.
Let us now step back into the portal and go to our segment of time and space. If you would like to see a longer video about what we went through today, or if you would like to see another specific video, leave it in the comments. Feel free to check any of our previous voyages on screen. My name was Epoch, and I will see you again on one side or the other. Farewell.